Have you ever been online, maybe looking for some specific research, a scientific paper?
Oh, yeah.
You click the link and then bam, paywall.
It's so frustrating, isn't it? You
Yeah.
you see the title, it looks perfect, but nope. Access denied unless you pay up, often quite a bit.
Exactly. And you think, wait, isn't a lot of this research funded by, well, us? Why is it locked away?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that whole experience, it's actually the perfect way into what we're digging into today, open access publishing.
Open access, or OA.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this whole movement, really.
Yeah.
And a set of publishing models aiming to make scholarly work, research articles, data freely available online.
For anyone to read and often reuse too.
Right.
And we've got a really interesting mix of sources for this deep dive. There are some foundational academic papers explaining OA.
What it is, why it even started.
Yeah, and an article looking at the pros and cons, some author stories about OA books and what success means there.
Which isn't always just about sales numbers, interestingly.
Right. And even this quite lively interview debating where the whole OA movement stands now. Is it succeeding? Failing?
It's definitely a diverse set of perspectives.
Yeah.
Which tells you right away this isn't simple. There's no single answer everyone agrees on.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to kind of unpack all this. Cut through the jargon, figure out what OA is, where it came from, how it works in practice, the benefits people see, but also the real challenges and the ongoing debates about its future.
Basically, we want you to come away feeling pretty well informed on what's quite a complex topic, and quickly.
Let's do it.
Okay, so it's starting at the beginning. At its absolute core, what defines open access?
Well, the key thing that comes through in the sources is it's about unrestricted online access. Not just reading the article, but often the data behind it, too.
And the internet was obviously the big enabler here.
Absolutely.
But the sources really stress another driver, something called the pricing crisis. Oh, definitely. That was huge. Libraries, universities, they just couldn't keep up with the soaring costs of journal subscriptions. It was becoming unsustainable.
So the internet offered a way to potentially bypass that traditional expensive model.
Exactly. A technical solution to an economic problem, in a way.
Now, the idea of sharing research wasn't brand new, right? The sources mentioned things like RCIV in physics back in the 90s.
Yeah, that's been around for ages. But the formal OA movement really coalesced in the early 2000s with things like the Budapest Open Access Initiative.
The Bethesda Statement, the Berlin Declaration, these really defined it.
And a crucial point they all made, though maybe with slightly different words, was that OA isn't just about removing the price tag, it's also ideally about removing permission barriers.
Ah, the copyright stuff.
Exactly. What can you actually do with the research once you access it?
Okay, so this leads to that distinction the sources make between the two main flavors of OA.
Right. You've got gratis OA. Think free as in beer. It removes the price barrier. You can read it online, download it, print it free of charge, but copyright and licensing restrictions still apply, beyond maybe standard fair use.
So reusing a figure in your own presentation might still need permission.
Potentially, yes. Then you have Libre OA. Think free as in speech.
More freedom.
Much more. It removes both price and those permission barriers. It explicitly allows users to copy, distribute, and reuse the work, often even modify it or create derivative works, usually just requiring proper attribution.
So Libre is kind of the gold standard for openness, allowing people to really build on the work.
That's the ideal for many proponents, yes. More freedom means more potential for innovation and knowledge building.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. How does research actually become OA? The sources talk about two main routes, gold and green.
Yeah, those are the main pathways. Gold OA refers to publishing in an open access journal.
So the journal itself is set up to be OA from the start.
Exactly. All articles published in that journal are immediately free to access online upon publication.
And crucially, the sources emphasize these journals do perform peer review.
Oh, absolutely. That's a common misconception. Peer review is still fundamental. The sources also suggest gold OA journals often make it easier for authors to keep their copyright and use those more permissive Libre licenses we just talked about.
Okay, so that's gold. What about green?
Green OA involves authors depositing a version of their work into an open access repository.
Like an archive.
Pretty much. Think of institutional repositories run by universities, or subject-based ones like PubMed Central or Archive.
And these repositories, they don't usually do the peer review themselves, do they?
Generally, no. They host articles that have already been peer-reviewed and published elsewhere, maybe in a traditional subscription journal.
Ah, but the sources mention a potential snag here. getting the final peer-reviewed version, the postprint, into that repository might need the publisher's okay.
That can be a hurdle. Publisher policies vary a lot on this. Sometimes there are embargo periods before you can deposit the final version.
Okay. And speaking of depositing work and sharing different versions, preprints came up quite a bit in one source.
Yes, preprints are a huge part of the picture now, very much related to Green OA and the broader open science idea.
They seem to be everywhere, but they're not totally new, are they?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned, physics has used Arsensic for decades, but we're in this second wave now. Biology has Bioarxiv, social sciences have Psychoxiv. It's really spreading.
And it's global, too. The source mentioned Indonesia with Einarx and Arinarxi. That was an interesting story.
Yeah, starting up, facing funding issues, pausing, then getting government support to relaunch.
It really shows how vital this infrastructure is seen to be in some regions.
Definitely. And preprints offer big advantages. Speed, getting findings out quickly without waiting for lengthy peer review.
Giving authors more control, maybe sharing results that are harder to publish traditionally, like negative findings.
Exactly, which is so important for things like reproducibility and reducing publication bias.
That speed and control must play into why authors choose OA or preprints. The sources talked about motivations, noting it's different for scientists compared to, novelists.
Totally different. Academics usually don't get royalties for journal articles. Direct payment based on readership isn't the main driver.
So what is? The sources mention a mix, partly altruism, wanting to share knowledge.
Yes, that's definitely part of it. Advancing science for the collective good. But there are also very real practical career incentives.
The signaling incentives, they call them?
Right. Publishing OA, especially gold OA or posting a preprint, makes your work much more visible.
More eyeballs on it.
More eyeballs and typically more citations. And citations are, the currency of academia in many ways.
They help with jobs, grants, promotions.
Exactly. So increased visibility through OA can directly accelerate your career. Preprints let you signal your latest work much faster.
So it's a blend of ideals and pragmatic self-interest.
Pretty much. Open science benefits science, and it can also benefit the individual scientist's career.
Okay, so we see benefits for authors and readers, but the sources also suggest broader economic effects.
Yeah, the argument is that OA can be more economically efficient overall, benefiting not just individuals, but institutions, funders, even industry.
How so? Cost savings?
Partly. Moving online saves print and distribution costs, obviously. But OA potentially avoids other costs tied to the subscription model.
Like managing subscriptions, building paywalls, legal fees for handling permissions.
Right. And many OA journals use free online tools for discoverability, saving on marketing.
But again, it's not free to produce, right? The sources are clear on that.
Absolutely not. Costs exist. Peer review, editing, hosting, someone has to pay. The OA model just shifts who pays.
So instead of readers or libraries paying via subscriptions, it's often paid up front.
Often, yes, by research funders, institutions, societies, or sometimes authors themselves through those article processing charges, APCs.
We'll definitely come back to APCs.
Oh, yes. But the argument is that these production costs are arguably lower than the total cost locked up in the subscription system.
And this shift creates benefits for others. Funders, for example.
For funders, it means a bigger return on their research investment. The results are out there, being used, potentially having more impact. Preprints also give them early sight of productivity.
Makes sense. And for universities.
Institutions can boost their research profile, help their faculty get wider reach, and preprints help them evaluate job candidates on their very latest work, not stuff published years ago.
And beyond academia, industry, society.
Big potential benefits. Professionals, doctors, engineers, tech companies can access the latest findings to improve their work. NGOs, journalists, the public can see research, often publicly funded research.
Increases transparency.
Exactly. And preprints can even support citizen science efforts.
That collection of OA book success stories was interesting too. It wasn't just about download numbers.
No, that really highlighted diverse impacts. Authors talked about reaching non-academic readers, faster uptake in teaching, sparking public debate, giving voice to marginalized topics.
Even playing with the book format itself. It shows OA isn't just one thing. It enables different kinds of communication.
Yeah, impact is multifaceted.
Okay, so there's a strong case for the value of OA, but, and it's a big but. Our sources dive deep into the challenges, the costs, the criticisms. It's definitely not all smooth sailing.
Not at all. And maybe the biggest point of contention revolves around those costs we mentioned, specifically the APC's article processing charges.
This is where the affordability and equity issues really bite, isn't it?
It seems so. Critics argue that APCs, which can run into thousands of dollars per article, just replace one barrier, the reader paywall, with another, an author paywall.
So if you don't have grant funding, or you're at a less wealthy institution, or maybe in the global south, you might be priced out of publishing in these OA journals.
That's the major concern. Has OA really solved the affordability problem or just shifted it, creating new inequities? It's a central tension in the debate.
What about alternatives? Diamond OA came up.
Yes. Diamond OA, free for authors and readers, usually funded by institutions, governments, foundations. It exists. It works in some contexts.
Yeah.
But questions remain about its long-term financial sustainability and whether it can scale up to handle the sheer volume of global research output compared to APC models.
Okay, so funding is a huge challenge. What else? Quality control.
That's another big one. Concerns get raised, fairly or unfairly, about whether the pressure to publish quickly or the financial incentive of APCs for some journals might lead to less rigorous peer review.
And the sources explicitly mention predatory journals.
Right. Those exploitative outfits that charge authors fees but provide little or no real peer review or editorial services. They muddy the waters.
And even with legitimate OA, does the speed, especially with preprints, put a strain on the whole peer review system?
That's a valid question commentators raise. Peer review largely relies on volunteer academic labor. Can it keep up?
Beyond cost and quality, are there other access barriers OA doesn't solve?
Definitely. Online access isn't universal access. You still have the digital divide, lack of reliable internet in many places.
Good point.
Plus censorship, the dominance of English as the language of science, and making content accessible for people with disabilities. These are still hurdles.
One commentator even asked if, in some ways, a public library offered a different kind of accessibility that pure digital OA hasn't quite replaced everywhere.
Interesting thought. And then there's just the sheer amount of information.
Information overload.
Exactly. Finding the reliable stuff amidst the noise can be tough. And if the same study exists as a preprint, a conference paper, a journal article, version control can be confusing.
The sources also mention systemic issues within academia itself.
Yeah, like how promotion and funding often still rely heavily on traditional metrics, like publishing in high-impact factor subscription journals. That can create a disincentive for OA practices.
Even if OA offers other benefits.
Right. And we can't ignore the economic impact on organizations, like scholarly societies, that have traditionally relied on publishing revenue, or individuals whose jobs are tied to that system.
And looking forward, AI. That adds a whole new layer of complexity.
Oh, absolutely. Generative AI models thrive on vast amounts of text data. OA provides that data freely.
So could companies be profiting from this open knowledge without contributing back?
That's a big concern. Does it create a need for, ironically, more gatekeeping? Or different kinds of licenses? Some wonder if AI might even push things back towards more restricted access to ensure data integrity or manage use.
Wow. Okay, this really sets the stage for that central debate in one of our sources. Has the OA movement actually failed?
Yeah, that's the provocative question posed, particularly by Richard Poindar in that interview source. His argument focuses heavily on affordability and equity.
Basically, if the main goal was to make knowledge accessible and affordable, but we've just swapped reader cost for author costs, APCs, potentially making it less equitable for authors globally, has it truly succeeded?
It's a stark framing. But the commentary around that interview provides important pushback and nuance.
Like the perspective from Latin America.
Exactly, where they argue OA has been a huge success, largely because they built their own infrastructure, often non-APC Diamond OA models, driven by necessity. For them, it's achieved crucial accessibility goals.
So success looks different depending on where you stand and what goals you prioritize.
Precisely. Others argue that judging it as a simple failure ignores the fact that this is a massive, complex system change. Of course, there are challenges and unintended consequences. It's still evolving.
And the sources show it is evolving, right? Different initiatives, different models being tried.
Yeah, things like subscribe to open, regional preprint strategies like in Southeast Asia. It's not monolithic. It's messy, diverse, and very much in motion.
So the takeaway isn't really a simple yes or no on success or failure.
I don't think so. What the sources collectively show is undeniable progress in making research more accessible to readers worldwide. That's huge. But it's simultaneously grappling with these really significant, persistent challenges around costs, equity, sustainability, quality, and how it fits into the wider academic and tech landscape. And those challenges fuel intense debate.
understanding the whole messy, complex picture, drawing on all these different viewpoints, that feels crucial for anyone dealing with research today.
Absolutely. Whether you're a researcher, a student, a funder, a librarian, or just someone trying to stay informed.
So we've gone from defining OA gratis versus Libre,
I looked at the gold and green pathways, plus preprints,
explored why authors choose it, the mix of altruism and career signals,
weighed the economic benefits against those significant costs and criticisms like APCs and quality concerns.
and landed in this ongoing complex debate about its overall impact and future.
It really is a system trying to balance the noble ideal of open knowledge with some very hard-nosed, practical realities.
So as we wrap up, maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Especially thinking about that AI point we touched on.
Yeah. In this world of abundant digital information, where AI can process knowledge at scale, who really stands to benefit most from all this openly available research?
And how do we make sure the system keeps evolving in a way that genuinely serves science, the global research community, and the public good?
And not just, becoming another resource exploited mainly by a few powerful commercial or technological players.
That's something to think about next time you click on a research link.
Definitely food for thought.